The Sweet Sound of Success show is brought to you by the Mentor Studio. The Mentor Studio is an exclusive mentoring and training program for social influencers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and startups, bringing personal development to the underserved around the world. And brought to you by Success Strategists. Simple strategies that work to develop your business with flow and ease using proven strategies and the right tactics. This is the Sweet Sound of Success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Today, we're welcoming Connie Durham, CEO of Connie's Clever Concepts. Connie is a certified speaker and trainer with the John Maxwell team and an authorized provider of TTI Success Insights Assessments. Connie's been married for 40 years, has 3 grown kids with their own families. She served for 21 years in a leadership position with a direct sales company. She's won 7 diamond rings, 2 company cars, and hundreds of prizes, including private parties at Universal Studios, California, and the Atlanta Aquarium. Connie believes personal growth, communication, and seeing life from other person's views are key to developing successful businesses and happy lives. She began Connie's Clever Concepts in 2018 and now empowers couples and families with relationship-saving communication skills and concepts. Welcome, Connie. Thank you for being on the show.
Hello, Sue. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. So, for my viewers and listeners who have not encountered my show before, the subtitle of the shows is The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur's Soul. And we are following the structure that Joseph Campbell put down in his Hero of 1,000 Faces. Now, I want to say that Joseph Campbell put down 16 different steps in the hero's journey. We're only going to do 5 of them because 16 is way too much for one little interview. So what we're going to be talking about today are Connie's ordinary beginning, the call to action, what brought her to being an entrepreneur, not once, not twice, but 3 times, if I remember correctly. The big hairy monsters that always come out to play when one decides to become an entrepreneur. And then the allies, mentors, and guides that she's had along the way, because no entrepreneur does it by themselves, or if they do, it takes much longer and it's way harder to do. And finally, what Joseph Campbell calls the journey home. And I kind of call it the shift, that when an entrepreneur's first acceptance of money in exchange for a product or service, something happens inside. There's this flame that ignites. There's this change in the basic psychology. And it might cause some differences between the entrepreneur and their friends, family, co-workers, if those still exist, and the community. So things kind of shift. So we'll talk about how that shift happens. So today, Connie, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, I would say really when I think about my ordinary beginning, it would be the fact that I danced ballet and jazz and tap since I was like 6 years old, but I never liked to be in front of people. And so
wait a minute. Whoa. So you did tap, you did dance, but you didn't like performing.
Right. So not only did I dance whenever I was a kid, But then in college, I was a voice major. So I sing, but I never liked to be in front of people. And I was always very uncomfortable being in front of people. So if I could sing and not be seen, that would be just fine with me. And so really all through my life and the different things that I've done, I have really not liked to be in front of people. Now, I love to be with people. I love to talk with people. I just don't like to be zeroed in on. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
I would say that is something that, as we talk today, that I move from one place to the next. And you never know all the in-between things that are going to go on and where you're going to end up. You just keep moving, right? So I love to dance. I love to sing, but I didn't like to be the center of attention.
Right. Right. So what was your call to action to being an entrepreneur?
Well, as far as being an entrepreneur, all right, so I taught dance for 20 years. And so
Wow.
I taught in the evenings, and, that somebody else paid me in that. So that was not so much an entrepreneur, but I could work my own schedule. So as I had my children, I was able to work my own schedule in the evening and teach dance. So I began with something that I loved. So I have always worked in something that I love. So I never had to go to work for the 9 to 5 drudgery of working for somebody else. Well, in the middle of working that 20 years teaching dance, I came upon a direct sell business and began to accept it to sell in that product. And I'll just say what it was, because it was Mary Kay Cosmetics. And
Great company.
It's also a God first, family second, career third business. And it taught me so very much. I served in that company for 21 years as a sales director, and I learned so very much. And I'm using all that stuff that I learned then today. But that was the first time that I was really working for myself. I was bashful. I was afraid to talk to somebody. I didn't want to bother anyone. And I definitely was not a salesperson. But what drove me at that time was I thought, oh, I can help women look pretty and feel good about themselves. And when I started Mary Kay, I didn't even take care of my skin. So first thing I did was, you got to practice what you preach.
Right.
I started taking care of my own skin. And so that is the beginning of my, working for myself, working my own hours, and a long journey actually of learning the skills that it takes to be a leader and to have that self-discipline, to be able to actually do a business for yourself, because it takes a lot of self-discipline, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Absolutely. Because there's going to be times when you run up against things, whether it's the classic no.
That was the first thing. No.
Right. Yeah. Or you do something in good faith, because most entrepreneurs, most business owners are, doing their best, and something goes sideways. Right. And you have to learn how to correct the sideways and move back into going forward again. So yeah, it takes a lot of self-discipline, that when problems come up, you don't just fold and
Right.
say, I quit, not going to happen.
And that's the difference from my humble beginnings from then to now. And I think there's something about, when you turn 60, you're like, you know what? You've always really cared about what everybody thinks. And I have high standards, so I don't have to really worry about what everybody else thinks. But it's like something shifts and something changes to where you're like, on this next thing, if I'm going to do it, I've got to just get out there and do it. So actually, my business that I'm doing now, Connie's Clever Concepts, the beginnings of that were actually started in 2004. And when we see something and we start to really have a passion for it, but we won't give up what we've been doing, what we've worked for, all the friends we know from that area, and we won't give it up. And it takes a little bit for us to step into the next place. So that was 2004 when I first started learning about the behavior styles, personality styles, and how people are really hardwired, and everybody has a particular personality style. And my kids all got married within 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And So there's only like 5 years from the youngest to the oldest, but they all got married within 18 months. And I started to realize that different families, we all have different backgrounds. We perceive things differently. We have different holidays, habits, what is great for one family never heard of or never does, or, everybody's just really different. So 2004, when I learned the personality styles, my kids were all still at home. But anyway, so I finally started to move forward into that in 2018. And that's kind of where I'm at now. As I literally, the difference from where you start and where you really gain that self-discipline is when you really develop a passion for what you're doing. And that passion, you still have the ups and the downs, the ups and the downs. One day you're working and you think, why am I doing this? Am I really going to move forward or am I not? And then another day you're high on the mountain and you got it all under control. Everything's popping, And so that is the path whenever you start your own business. And it's harder than you think. And there's always lots more than you think to learn than you think there is, right?
Right. There's been a Facebook meme that's been going around, and I think I've seen it on Instagram as well, where it says, when we start our business and what we think the trajectory is going to be, and it's this straight line that goes, from kind of lower left-hand corner to upper right-hand corner. And maybe there's some, jaggities in there. And then they said, and what reality is, looks like a ball of yarn after a tribe of kittens have gotten finished with it. It's just all tangled and the line is all screwy and everything. It's like, yeah, that's basically what happens.
Well, Sue, thinking about that, one of the things that made a big difference for me, how you read books and you see different concepts and you're like, oh, that's good. That's good. But, we look at things and we learn things and then we move on to the next thing. And we don't really fully use or expand on those things. Right. And a book that I read, it was called, I should actually look at it, it's up here. It's called The One Thing. One thing. And I think that is one of the biggest things for people building a business, for like when I'm working with couples, helping them learn to understand each other. What's the one thing that would help your relationship, do better? What's the one thing in your business that you need to move forward? What's the one thing you need to do today? And when you finish it, what's the next one thing? Because we're so distracted by so many things, right? That we know if we spend a lot of time working on something that is not taking us anywhere, then we just wasted that time, right? And we're frustrated.
Right. Exactly. So we are distracted. Things do come up. So what were some of the big hairy monsters that you might have encountered and got to play with?
Well, okay. So last year in 2020, in January, I traveled to Arizona for a TTI convention. We traveled along in California. It was great and wonderful. You go to a business event and then do a little traveling around it. And little did I know, the beginning of March, I had a daughter-in-law who decided that she was not happy and was not going to, stay in her relationship. And so my son had ended up, as he would have it, with his 4 girls that were 11 years old and younger. And so March 1st, so this is pretty hairy, right?
Right.
So March 1st, my husband and I started playing tag team amongst our schedules, our already totally full schedules. And we were catching kids off the bus, getting kids off the bus. There was a 4-year-old that had to have, somebody stay with them, all during the day. And I learned I was juggling. But little did we know, in the middle of March here in the United States, everything closed down. Everybody stayed home. We all started working from our computers. So my son kept working. And so we were home with 4 children. And I consider myself pretty energetic. I have pretty good energy. So I had a lot of great time with my granddaughters. But one of the big things that helped me to make it through and be able to try to still get my work done and keep building my web page and building my business, reaching out for that audience was everything that I did all day long. I had gratitude. And so I just gave God thanks over and over all through the day, all the time. And to be honest, I probably have been a person who would whine or grumble usually, but I have found in past challenges that when I whine and grumble and you repeat, they say you get more of whatever you focus on, right? And so, if you're going to be grumbling, you're just going to get some more grumbling and more things to grumble about. So I praise God, I learned to have an attitude of gratitude. And so it was a great time, with my grandkids. And as a note, that son met a woman with 4 more children in a similar circumstance, and he got married 2 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
So he's a family
of the Brady Bunch, but hey.
Family of 10. So, but that was the biggest thing in the middle of beginning. And then, everybody had COVID. But so I also had the juggling of family and kind of like being a mom, taking the mom position for all that time. So,
and so gratitude kept your sanity.
Yeah, that's not what you expected, was it?
Right. No, that was great. But, COVID was a big, hairy monster for probably 99% of the population. That was a huge hairy monster. And I love that gratitude was the answer, the antidote to that particular, how can we say, interrupt into the business.
So, and I was at a chamber meeting in my area the other day. And do you know that I sat beside a insurance person and a banker, and they both told me that they had better business during that time. Their business was bigger and better than it had ever been. So while some had super challenges and some got sick and that kind of thing, others prospered or found new businesses and new ways around things. Right.
And it's the attitude. It's all about the attitude, and whether you pivot with, hey, I wonder how this is going to work. And, I'm grateful that I get this opportunity to try something new, and this is really cool. Or, oh my God, the world is ending and my vendors aren't providing and I can't reach people and I hate cameras, so I'm not going to be on Zoom. So, yeah. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because obviously 2020 was the year of Zoom. They're not sponsoring this. But
basically I had started back when I did Mary Kay and I was a sales director. I'd done a little bit of Zoom with my unit and some of the training and that kind of stuff. But they're that whole thing. Remember at the beginning where I didn't really like to be the center or to be looked at or whatever. And so, when you're sitting there and you're having a conversation with somebody, it's one thing. But whenever you start recording everything. So, I started using my phone camera to record my lessons and to do stuff with nobody there. So I'll share my feelings of the first time I did a Facebook Live. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So the first time I did a Facebook Live, because I had gotten used to doing trainings out in a room with people. Mm-hmm. And so Facebook Live, I had about 55 minutes of training. And so I started in doing that. I'm going through my materials. And, I know the importance when you're speaking in front of people to have that energy as you're moving forward. So I gave it that energy the whole time. But in the middle of it, I started to think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. How much longer do I have to keep talking through this? There's no feedback. There's nobody talking to me. And so I finished, and I really kind of fell apart when I finished because I felt so empty because there was no people there or I couldn't interact with anybody. But, I went back and looked at it and it was fine. It's just that empty feeling inside of us. And so often our emotions and how we feel, really projects or, anyway, it gets in our head, right? It gets in our head.
Yes. It's like a worm or a virus that gets in our head and it starts talking to us and going, oh, this is awful. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, you can't do this. Nothing's working. And can I share with you a technique that one of my mentors taught me about that?
Okay.
Is when the first part, which is the hardest part, is noticing that the little voice is going off. But the second part is really fun, and it makes you want to find the little voices. You know those wind-up toys that you get at Halloween, which are chattering teeth?
Oh, yeah.
Turn those voices into the chattering teeth. So just imagine that it's one of those things going, and the voice becomes the chattering teeth. And it makes you laugh, and it breaks that cycle of feeling bad. You get amused by it. And so it's
you know what? And it is that. So it's like finding that thing that works for you. Another thing that really helped me during that time was I'd never been a reader. So I started out as a person who I really read very little. I mean, I read a little bit, it's just, I didn't read that much. And all of a sudden, when I started into my next business in 2018, I started to read. I started out, first of all, as a John Maxwell. I joined the John Maxwell team. I started reading all his books. I started reading all kind of books. And so even last night, I've had to be studying on my craft and also on a lot of the technical stuff of the internet and web pages and stuff like that. So I've had to be studying a lot of that kind of stuff. But, I kind of found all of a sudden I hit a little wall because, those mountains and valleys, I hit a little wall. And so last night I had some trouble with that. You think you're doing fine, and all of a sudden, bam, there it is. So, you have to figure out what to do. And so I pulled out that old book. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I started reading it because when you have those kind of thoughts in your head, you have to replace them with something else. And in Mary Kay, you used to always say, cancel, cancel, cancel those thoughts. Anyway, so you have to replace them with something good. And really the world these days, it puts so much stuff in our head, creating division and all that kind of stuff. So it's like we have to not listen to the voices. Sometimes they're in our head, sometimes they're out there, and we have to figure out what replaces it and that gives us power instead of taking our power, right?
Exactly. Yeah, find that resource that works. So, and speaking of resources, who were your allies, your mentors, your guides? Can you just call out some folks who have helped you over time and supported you and helped guide you in your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, first of all, I'm a Christian, so I give glory to God, and that's the number one. But I have the most supportive husband, and I feel honored. And actually, tomorrow is my 42nd anniversary.
Woo!
And I feel privileged because people are not all compatible. They're not all compatible. People bring all the stuff with them that happens to them as a kid or in their adult life. They just bring baggage in. So I'm very fortunate to have married a person where we're very compatible. Our families are very much alike, and that's been good. So anyway, 42 years tomorrow in that. And but your eyes are open to the world and all the crazy stuff that goes on. So, but my husband is my number one. He just supports me. And sometimes, I don't know, he'll be like, oh, that was great, honey. I'm like, yeah, but was it really good? Because you're kind of partial. I mean,
right.
But my kids are also supportive. Everybody's busy doing their own thing, but my kids are supportive too. So, yeah, you've got to have some support. I don't know how people manage if they have no support at all.
Right. Just some folks try to do it by their bootstraps, but it's so much easier and so much better to have a support system.
And Sue, also that goes back to the personality styles that I teach. There is one personality style, especially, that is really strong-minded, and those people usually are your leaders. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says to them; they just keep moving and keep moving on. But it's literally they're hardwired that way. Now they got some challenges too, but they're hardwired that way. So I am not that style though. So I did have to really pull up my bootstraps and keep my nose to the grindstone and keep going.
Yeah. So let's talk about that interesting bit called the journey home. That that shift that happens. What was the reaction, for instance, when you first started doing Mary Kay? Because direct marketing, direct sales, sometimes people have, shall we say, interesting reactions when somebody starts that process. Now,
Well,
I will say that Mary Kay is a great company, and very few people that I've ever heard of have a negative reaction to it. But it's the whole direct marketing thing, the direct sales thing
it
in
is.
general.
It is the thing that nobody likes to be sold to.
Right.
But I like to go shopping, don't you?
Right.
So with Mary Kay, the hardest part was whenever I had to, we used the word ask somebody if they wanted to do a facial and a makeover. But then I learned to use a different word. And this is the thing, the words that are in your head. I learned to use the word offer. So I learned to offer the person the facial and the makeover. And I learned not to take it personal if they said no. People are busy, it's no big deal. So, and it's the law of numbers. So if you
Yes.
ask enough people, this goes for everybody in whatever business they're doing. If you ask enough people, then you're going to get some yeses. And so that's kind of what I did with that. I learned to offer, since I did not like to ask for anything. My mom told me not to ask for anything. So, I learned to offer. And so that helped. Now, as far as a shift, I think the fact that I did Mary Kay for so very long, and I was in a leadership position and I was teaching others, it's like 2 or 3 years ago, it's like I said, turning 60 or something. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm 60. I'm older than that now. But it was like a shift. And it was like, if I really want to move forward by helping people understand their personality styles and how to get along with people different than them, if I want to help couples and families, the divorce rate is 50%, and so if I want to help people, I've got to shift, and I have to be stronger, and I have to keep on moving. And I like to tell a story as we're looking at this. There's the story of the starfish, and let's see if I tell it right. But there's the man walking along the beach, and sometimes we think that we're just not making a difference. And sometimes, especially when you're looking at the internet, and you can speak to people in other countries and all over the place, and they can hear you, and you can never even know they picked up something from your teaching. So that man's walking along the beach and he's picking up starfish. They're like all over the shore. And as he's picking up the starfish and he's throwing them back in the water, and he's walking along, and he's been doing it for quite a while, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And he comes across somebody and they say, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm throwing the starfish back in the water." And the guy goes, "Look at all the starfish everywhere. You can't even make a difference. You can't even make a dent in that." And the man picked up a starfish and he threw him out into the water. And he said, "I made a difference for that one." And that's something we have to remember when we're working our business, is that we don't always get to see the seeds that are planted. We don't always get to see them grow.
Exactly.
That makes you feel good when you know that what you share and what you teach helps somebody, right?
Right. Right. And that actually brings me to my bonus question,
Ding, ding,
which
ding.
is what, of all of the things that you do in your business, what's the favorite thing that you do? What's your favorite part?
Oh my goodness. My favorite part, the
It's like
part I
choosing your favorite
started out to do, is actually sharing the personality styles and how people are literally hardwired. But what happened is I work to get that message out, and that's actually my class. I have the assessments for it, and it makes a difference in everything that you do, because once you learn it, then you understand sometimes maybe somebody you thought maybe they didn't like you, or they're a little harsh, or you're opposites and there's problems, and you start to realize that that's just how they are. And if you understand, it really helps. But as I started working towards doing that, then I started to fall into the areas of realizing how people from different backgrounds, different families, they perceive things different. People don't learn how to meet in the middle. It's my way or the highway. Right. And there's so many things we bring into relationships. So I've really been dealing with a lot of that. And then adding into that technology and building a web page and learning how to do a plethora of other things. But my favorite is actually, being in front of people, with people, and, sharing with them and pouring into them, because you like to see their face and their reaction and their question and that interaction. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of across the board, the number one answer for everybody when I ask that question. It's when you see their face and they light up and you've increased their knowledge or their self-awareness or something. And yeah, that's the that's the best part.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Connie, for being on the show. This has been very inspirational. I love how you've gone from dancing in one very kinesthetic way to
I still like to dance.
To dancing sort of with the mind and helping people to be their own best partners as well as partners with other people, because it's really, that's what I always call it, is the dance between people. And how do you interact? And it's, who's leading, who's following at any particular moment. And so you're just dancing all the way.
I like that. Thanks, Sue.
You're welcome. And thank you to all of my viewers and listeners on the sweet sound of success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.